On this episode of Teatt at Work, I'm joined with the Secretary General, Miguel the WEEVER. SG, thank you for joining us.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
For our viewers, who is Miguel the WEEVER?
Well, Miguel Weaver is someone that has worked for government for the last 22 years. I started in August 1st, 1997, as a policy advisor at the then Department of Economic Affairs. And then after, in 1999, I became head of the Department of Economic Policy and Research. The government was going through a reorganization. It was pretty much a flat organization, and because obviously it became a little bit challenging to somewhat coordinate and manage projects and processes. So they kind of grouped certain departments that were relevant. So they were going towards what we call the sector model. And one new department that came under the ministry at that time, or the sector at that time, was the Department of Economic Policy and Research, which I did until 2006, and then I became the sector director. So that was then the boss of the sector, which covered 4 departments: the tourist department, inspection department, the economic license department, and the Department of Economic Policy and Research. So I became the sector director after my predecessor is Ms. Diana Fleming, and then there was Mr. Mingo, the deceased, blessed rest him, and then I became the sector director, and that was in 2006. And then we went on to country status. So I had the fortunate opportunity to take the island territory and the sector at that time into what we have as country and our ministry, Ministry of Tourism, Economic Affairs, and that happened in 2010 until today. It's been a journey. It's been a journey, a very interesting and learning journey, going from island territory to country. And hopefully sometime, I can pass on the baton to someone that can take over the journey and take it to the next level. So, it was a nice learning, it is a nice learning experience. The departments falling under the Ministry of Teatt, as we would commonly refer to it, is the Tourism Department, the Economic Policy Department, which is the policy department, what we call Economy, Transportation, and Telecommunication, ETT, the Economic License Department, the Statistical Department, the Inspection Department, the Meteorological Department, and the Department of Civil Aviation, Shipping, and Maritime. And of course, I think I mentioned the Tourist Office as well. So I think those are 7 departments that I have to manage and oversee and make sure that things work effectively. But it's a very broad ministry. I mean, when you think, economy, and then you have the Department of Meteorology resorting under you. When you think about civil aviation and shipping and maritime, those are all departments that, of course, they're related to the economy as well, so they're important. But so it's a very broad area of responsibility.
What are some of the crucial indicators since Hurricane Irma on how the economy is progressing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because before we get into policy, we always one of the key thing that we do is monitor the economy. And we monitor to see how things are going so that we could then use that as a basis to somewhat focus on where are the policy areas that we want to focus on. And, so we look at our figures such as stay-over arrivals, and we see, obviously, because of Irma, we are getting there. 2019 compared to 2018 is very much better. It's 123%. That's because, we have some significant 2018 where we lost a lot of visitors because of obviously Irma and the hotel rooms, but now 2019 rooms are coming back online. So we are still, we're doing much better. We're still not up to par compared to pre-Irma, and obviously because we still have a number of hotels that are closed. So there we are improving, and naturally, as of course, with the airport reopening, that is also something that we want to see, because obviously that affects how much also, and sometimes the hotels are kind of on the fence waiting to see, what's going to happen with the airport for them to continue to rebuild and finalize their properties and reopen. So it's kind of that type of situation, but the stay-over arrivals have improved significantly 2009 compared to 2018. 2018, as indicated, was a year that we had a direct effect of Irma. Cruise tourism, on the other hand, for example, we're pretty much back up to the pre-Irma days levels, because we had an increase in 2019 compared to 2018 by 30% and 29%. And basically, even if we compare the current 2019 figures with even pre-Irma numbers, where that in 2017, 19 compared to 17, and then it was like 29%. So, and 2019, 2018 was 30%. So we're pretty much on par when it comes to cruise tourism. So there, we're doing well. The occupancy rates are also high with the rooms that we have. We're back about 65% of the number of the rooms based on the number of rooms we had to pre-Irma. We're about 65%, so we have some space to grow there. And I think once those grow, we will also see some more increasing. The unemployment rate is also, when we really think about it, while it is in the neighborhood of like 9%, in 2019, when you consider what this country has been through, the strongest hurricane that has come through the Caribbean, and we hope to never see another one like it, but and still to be in single digits unemployment, and the year before it was, let's say, estimated to be around 10, over 10, almost 11%. So things are much better, and it could have been far worse. So I think we have to be glad and grateful that things have improved significantly.
What are some of the main focuses of the ministry?
Some of the other crucial economic indicators, for example, that we monitor is exports and imports, what the money and how the money flows out of the country and goods coming into the country, and exports and imports. And when we look at our data, for example, for 2018, we see that exports have dropped by 14%, and imports is still a positive increase of 20%. So that's more money leaving and less money coming in, and obviously that's expected. The degree is still significantly, relatively okay, because obviously, again, we went through Irma. The exports dropping, that's our tourism revenue coming in. So once you get less visitors, automatically you will get less money coming, because tourism is an export. Most people think of exports in the sense of I'm sending something out and then getting money in. Basically, with tourism, it works in the same way. The visitors bring money to the country, so that's why it's an export. So there, because of the airport, limited hotel rooms, you will still see a drop, and because we have a lot of construction going on and other things, that's why your imports are still, let's say, in the positive. So that's also something that we see and we monitor. Similarly to inflation, 2018 we saw inflation of just under 3%, 2.9%, and in the first quarter of 2019 it's just 0.67. So inflation is also something that we look at, because we want to keep to see how prices are developing, as well as, for example, things in the banking sector. And in the banking sector, we see, for example, loans in 2018 compared to 2017 has contracted, just a small contraction of 1.6%, and the deposits have increased by 2.3%. Now that's somewhat of a kind of good news. I mean, banks want you to take more loans because they make more money. The interest that they charge. Deposits going up is meaning that people are saving. They're not, taking as much loans as they could. That means market money's in the banking sector. The banking sector is liquid. It means that they're willing to give a lot of loans, and that's why you also see a lot of loans and promotions, etc. But it also, because of when the loans are less and the deposits are more, that interest rates will remain relatively low. So it's also a good time to jump in the market if you have the resources to make your investments, buy a house, buy a land, because then, interest rate at this stage will be relatively low. Of course, depending on if you have a stable job and those other factors. GB production, obviously, those are still in the negatives and water, electricity, because if your airport is not up to full capacity, your hotels are not up at full capacity. Those are the reasons why you will see still they will be in the minus, but they're not in real big. They're like in 16% for electricity, and for water it's just like almost just under 8% contraction. So we're getting back to where we used to be. It's a mixed bag of results, but I think we are heading in the right direction, because we see whatever's decreasing, we see them decreasing less. Or if there's a growth, we haven't fully recovered, but we're growing. So we're going back to where we were.
What are the main focuses for the ministry?
Some of the main focuses of the ministry, because there's so much that we, but the one key things that obviously are important to us is the economic recovery plan. In there we have a lot of different projects and across different ministries. We want to work with them to be able to get things back on track, prevent the problems of the past. We have our economic development plan. We have stuff related to investment and how to attract investment, which we can get into later. The revitalization of Phillipsburg, doing some projects there, murals, working with supporting the Cope Avon events and stuff like that. Small things with small businesses. We handle obviously economic control, maximum prices, weights and measurements, economic diversification, trying to speed up the process of economic licenses. We do the calculation of gasoline prices. We are also dealing with things like related to civil aviation with ICAO to make sure that we pass the audits so that we can get back to category 1. And then we have obviously things related to making sure we are compliant with ISPS from the maritime sector. And so there are a number of areas that we are as a ministry responsible for. It's very broad, it's very exciting, it's dynamic, and these are things that we are looking to achieve.
SG, you mentioned investors. What are some of the plans set in place to attract investors to the island?
Well, we have a number of policy documents that we think that we use as a guide towards the attracting of investments in a particular strategy. We have our document, what we call the Economic Recovery Plan, and that basically is a more broader, short-term, how do we get the economy back on track? And in there we have some things that are very specific that we need to do as a country across different ministries to help us get back on track. But we also have things like our economic development plan, where we talked about, what's the economic plan for the country and how we see it, an economic policy and strategy that goes along with that economic plan. We have an incentive package that we've put together that is based on a number of processes that investor will go through from, when they buy the land, the planning permit and the building permit, the business license, the work permits, the residence permits, and even tax incentives. So that's a whole package that we are looking at, and then trying to see how we can come with some incentives to attract investments, and that's why we also have an investment guide to help those investors, to guide them as well. And then we have what we call the investment opportunities, and here we have a number of investment opportunities that we can use to be able to promote St. Martin, investment opportunities to look for investors to be able to invest in St. Martin along some different specific areas that we think would create some significant jobs for the economy of St. Martin. So I think that is something that a large roadmap that we are going to follow, and hopefully with the right tools and the right incentives and the right combining of our resources and policies, that we can actively attract investments to create the jobs. Because at the end of the day, government's main source of income is its TOT, which is the turnover, as well as the income that comes from wage taxes. So that's directly from the jobs that are being created. So the more we can create jobs, and we don't necessarily mean minimum wage job, because obviously, those are jobs that they don't really pay too much or any wage taxes. So you want jobs that will be higher paid, less burden on the infrastructure, but also then government can create and generate some significant income for itself. One of the other things, for example, that is a major catalyst that will help propel St. Martin to the next level as well is the attraction and acquirement of U.S. pre-clearance. That will significantly put St. Martin on the map. When you think about it, a visitor wants to travel somewhere, and when it's time to go back home, they have the ease and the burden, the easier burden when they are traveling. So once they pass through our airport, when they reach to their destination, they can just jump in the car and go home, or catch another flight from one gate to the next, and they don't have to worry about, when they get to a main gateway with a lot of different planes, a lot of different passengers, and the hustle and bustle of travel. With USB clearance, you'll be able to, from St. Martin, go. And that's what visitors are, and that makes destinations actually very attractive. If you look at the way Aruba is right now, they have a lot of visitors, but their neighbor next door, Kyoso, have very little. One of the things is because they have USB clearance. Kyoso have hotels, so it's not like they don't have hotels. So if you look at countries like other countries like Dublin, they have managed to triple their arrivals in a space of 8 years after we acquired USB clearance. So, we are actively in partnership with the other ministries to acquire USB clearance, because we know it will take St. Martin to the next level, and we have to be prepared for that as well.
Ashita Weaver, in speaking about the Phillipsburg revitalization, what are some of the plans set in place for that project?
Well, I don't want to leave the cat out of the bag too much, but there, for example, because they're the tourist officers are working directly with them, and I'm sure they're going to a lot more details when they talk and they have their thing, their interview with you. But we have two key projects that I like with the revitalization. One is the supporting of the Cove, where we want people to be able to come to town and and give small businesses a little opportunity. And SME development is also one of the areas and one of the policy documents that we are also working on and finalizing in the ministry, so we can work with credits and other institutions to help small businesses develop, and along with the Chamber of Commerce, etc. But in the meantime, things like private initiatives, such as the Co-Power, are tremendous projects that we would like to support and continue to support, because they give small businesses an opportunity. If someone goes and participates in that event, they get some exposure. They get to the shoppers that are there get to know what they sell, what they offer, how they look, how they taste, depending on the product that they're selling, so that when they now make the next step into going into an actual business, they already have some recognition, either for their product, for their name, and so it gives them a little jump start, a head start. So those are key initiatives that we think that how should I say, are worthy to support and are good initiatives. Similar other project, other project that we like to promote and we are going to be pushing with revitalization is the murals project. The murals is doing a number of art and painting some alleys, so that we can use that as a basis to get visitors to move through town. Use it as a promotional effort. We're going to hopefully try to work with the telecommunication business to offer some free Wi-Fi hotspots, so that it can be used to then upload and on the social media platforms, and say, hey, I'm Mr. Martin, look at, and have little treasure hunts that persons can do, and so that you can then have them go all throughout Phillipsburg and shop, and not just be focused only in, let's say, one area of the Phillipsburg, but move through different aspects of different, whether it's back street, front street, the lower, and the middle, so that we can try to get a mixture of businesses in the economy. Because from an economic perspective, and when we think about initiatives from the tourist office, you want that the impact is felt on different levels throughout your economy. You want us to do activities that the big hotels can benefit, but you also want to do activities where the smaller hotels will also benefit. So regional tourism, sports tourism, for example, where we're heavy proponents of those type of activities, initiatives, because then, when you have the regional teams come and play sports, which they're already doing, they stay in the smaller hotels and then they shop, during the course of the day. The games might be in the night. If the kids, in particular, if you attract sports where they have kids, they're going to come with parents, and then they're going to want to shop, and so I think these are certainly things that we should do, in particular during the off season, because in the season our rooms are filled. St. Martin is a high demand destination. This is, we're well known. We can charge a little higher price. Now it's about, since we don't have the rooms back up, we're now trying to, and even when we get them, we get more rooms. It's off season is what we should always try to get more business in the off season. Of course, it's a little bit challenging sometimes with the hurricanes, but the initiative and objective should always be as well and be maintained, that we want to be able to fill the rooms in the off season, and via sports, via conferences, we can fill those rooms on different levels, so that everybody gets a piece of the pie and the benefit, so that hopefully we can have a very prosperous country.
As the Secretary General of the Ministry of Teatt, what are some of the bottlenecks you face?
Well, obviously, as the Secretary General, you're involved in a lot of meetings and discussions, of course, and with your workload, and when you're in meetings, the workload don't stop. whether it's emails, whether it's advices that are coming from the 7 different departments and other ministries, that want you to sign and agree to something, and that you have to read and peruse, and you have to manage people, the human resources, right now we have a lot of challenges and because persons opportunities are being presented to them, so they move from one department to the next. Then you have to then try to go rehire some folks, and those are the challenges that we have, along with limited budgets, because sometimes if you can't compete sometimes with private sector or with the other department or other outside of government who can operate a lot more flexible, more easier, more faster, that poses a challenge. And one of the other challenges, but sometimes fun, is getting different ministries, departments, internal, external, to work in a synchronized and think, have the same vision, the same objective, the same policy, and then how do we then get it to the same level of priority? My priority might not be the same priority as another ministry, another department, because, for example, they may have some other priority because they have other challenges. So, but the problems don't stop, the work don't stop, and while you're doing all that, you have everything building up. So I think how you manage all that at the same time, and you're dealing with a lot of different subject matters all at once. You got one minute to talk about this, and next right after that you got to talk about something totally different, and so it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but we persevere through it all.
As to the Weaver, shifting in topic a little bit, we are currently in the peak of the hurricane season.
Yep.
What is the role of the Ministry of Teatt as ESF Group 10, so the Emergency Service Function Group 10?
Well, ESF 10, I am also the coordinator of ESF 10, and there we're responsible for tourist, airport, and harbor. And of course, with my other hat as Secretary General of the Ministry of Teatt, there are other responsibilities that we also supposed to and expected to execute or maintain or continue to execute. So it's also a challenging aspect of the job. But when it comes to tourists, naturally, we want to, when there's a disaster, or in particular with a hurricane, for example, because we're in hurricane season, it's about mostly getting the visitors off the island before the storm, so that we have less to worry about after the storm. But we have to track and make sure and see, where our visitors and who were able to leave and and how many people didn't get to leave, because those are the people that we have to get account for after a post-disaster, and then we then have to find ways in which to get them out. And naturally, we work with various embassies with foreign affairs, so that we can then get those countries to come and get their citizens post-disaster, but also try to get the message out. Dorian just passed us, and that was a tremendous test run for us, because it worked well to see that the information we pass on to the U.S. consulate, and then how they then trigger their travel alerts with their U.S. State Department, so that they can inform their citizens. But good thing Dorian wasn't a direct threat, so much mobilization didn't have to take place, but at least the information was passed on, and I think that was an important aspect. Naturally, with the airport and the harbor, we need to make sure that they're ready and prepared and locked down to prepare for any storms, and also for post-disaster when we do the assessments to see what damage has occurred and how fast can we be back up and running. So because the faster we get back up, is the faster we get the economy. How should I say it? The faster we get the economy going, and then we have things like that's why we think it's so important that businesses and individuals, and as much as possible, try to insure themselves, because once you are insured, properly insured, not just insured, properly insured, making sure you're not underinsured, and so that we can then get your full premium. So, based on the premiums you pay, you will get your full payout without questions, and then with that money, you can then rebound, and the economy can rebound and recover faster. So, that's just how should I say, a little extra nudge to make sure that we do those things, so that we can get our economy back up and running as fast as possible. We can be a resilient economy, and those are things that we want to make sure we're prepared for.
Where do you see the ministry in the next 5 to 10 years moving forward?
In the next 5 to 10 years, I would love to see the ministry and the economy. For me, my job is about making sure our economy work well. and that economy is at what we call in economics full employment. That means everybody who's willing and able to work have a job, but not just having a job, but being, having a better quality of life. That businesses are also making money. We want that, prices are moderate, the persons aren't taking advantage of the consumer, that our budget is balanced. So we want to see an economy that where everyone is benefiting. And I think that is what makes a country a good country. How we take care of its citizens, how people are living. And I think that's where I would really, truly love to see this country, but it's going to take partnership. It's going to take everyone understanding their role and responsibility, and both public and private. And that we live in this environment, in this space, in this small little country, um, where everyone is happy. And happiness comes from that you don't have to worry about, where's my next meal gonna come from? That I have a job, that I'm secure, but I'm also productive. I'm also taking care of our visitors to make sure that they have a good time. That crime is not on the rise, and that we are at a level where everybody is comfortable, happy, and prosperous.
Thank you, Ashley the Weaver, for joining us on this episode of Teatt at Work.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Teatt at Work. Be sure to stay tuned for more episodes.